Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are once again rolling out with another episode of Community Steel. And today for you, we're kicking this episode off with the EHT-10 from Death Pigeons. This thing weighs in at 119 tons. Good Lord, what a heavy tank. And it's armed with a 120 millimeter main gun with 210 millimeters of penetration for the late war period. Reload speed's not bad. The depression is... Depression, comrade? Yeah, very Soviet. The design of the vehicle is really interesting to me. I could see multiple different types of designs in this, but then I can also see a lot of unique features to it as well. And, you know, as you can see here, the way the side plate is folded, of course, I ran into the invisible barrier because I'm old and shit, wasn't paying attention. It's got a raised engine deck, interlapping suspension, you know, just a really, really weird tank. But it's pretty cool looking, I'll give them credit for that. The next vehicle we have here is the Type 1A 19T from Page. This weighs in at 21.5 tons, armed with an 83 millimeter main gun, and has 214 millimeter penetration. I didn't look really closely, but I did scratch my head when I wrote down the penetration of how on an 83 millimeter gun did you get that much pen? Because as you could hear, the previous entry was a 120 millimeter main gun and only had 210 millimeter of pen. But either ways, this vehicle is actually rather good. Gun depression wise, absolutely trash. Armor wise, effective armor, speed, really good on those ends. The gun, when you can actually get the gun on something, works pretty well. I can see where it is kind of like inspired by something like the T-72. There's definitely a lot of features here that reminds me of the T-72, to be honest. It's got big storage boxes on the front, which kind of may be a proxy for bolt-on composite armor. Not really sure. But other than that, I mean, it's a really effective vehicle for how lightweight it is. Alright, the next vehicle I have here is the CBJ TD3 from Substep. Really good job on the name again, mate. Weighs in at 34 tons, has a 105 millimeter main gun with 204 millimeters of penetration. The one problem I did have, the elevation and depression was fine for the most part, but the side-to-side traverse was very limited. So I had to rely a lot on actually moving the whole vehicle left and right to actually train the gun on something, and pretty much had enough side-to-side traverse to get like a real fine aim out of it, and that was about it. Now that being said, I believe this is actually based on the CDA 105. Folks, forgive me, I'm old and shit, I don't remember the TD. There's a Tier 8 premium French TD that this vehicle is definitely reminiscent and based on. It's actually quite effective in World of Tanks from the last time I seen it. But this is for the late war period, and unfortunately for these Panzer IV-Gs, they don't stand a chance. Alright, let's move on to the next one. We have the SC TAV 875 from TRex. I almost thought that was from Substep when I saw the name. But it's from TRex 2040, folks. Weighs in at 35.18 tons, armed with a 75 millimeter main gun, and it's got 100 millimeters of penetration. It is for the early war period. And honestly, while I see a lot of different changes here, this definitely reminds me of the American M24 Chaffee with better armor and a little bit upscaled, if you will, kind of making it more along the lines of some type of medium tank, which is kind of heavy to be a medium tank for the early war period, but it's kind of too heavy to be a heavy tank, too light to be a heavy tank. Or sorry, too heavy to be a medium tank, too light to be a heavy tank. Forgive me, folks. I get old and shit sometimes. But otherwise, The tank itself, the armor is actually really effective. The gun is actually really accurate for the most part. I can get it trained onto a target, blast away. Depression is good. Mobility is good. I could not pen the Man of War no matter how hard I tried. I do not remember how much armor's on this thing, but I kept trying to penetrate and got to the point where I just threw my hands up and forgot about it. I think I finally penned it on the side, but it took a while. It took me putting myself in a bad position and getting tracked, which I do believe you might see here. I don't know. So it's kind of one of those of like, wow, that was, yeah, the Man of War. That thing's tougher than I remember. Let's get the gun trained on here, and there we go. Finally killed the thing, and now I can't do anything. Fun times. Fun times. All right, the last vehicle we have here for today is from Coast. That's like Ghost with a C, 05. And this is his VK 1602. And it weighs in at 19 tons. It is armed with the 50 millimeter main gun. It is based on the VK 1602 Leopard. And it's got 130 millimeters of penetration for the mid-war period. This is a light tank. It is a reconnaissance tank. Now, if I recall correctly, this thing actually, you had two different options of guns on it. I believe there was a version with a 35 and there was a version with a 50. This here, he's representing the version with the 50. 50 millimeter main gun here. Really great for short range, medium range combat. Penetrate almost anything I will go up against. Armor is, well, I mean, come on, folks. It's a light tank. It actually did pretty well armor-wise. Did better than I expected. But nothing to write home to mom about. Once again, I'm up against 37 millimeter lightly armored, lightly gunned tanks. So, yeah, I mean, the tank kind of judges that it's not very good armor-wise. And I honestly, I don't think the AI is smart enough to load HE. Because HE probably really would have put a hurting on this thing. But either way, it's quite effective, very fast, very good gun depression, very good gun accuracy, decent reload speed. There's nothing I can say bad about this vehicle whatsoever, except for some odd reason, the decals didn't load for me properly. I don't know. Guys, I do keep loading the decals, by the way. If I have the decals, I load them, and they just, for some odd reason, sometimes when I load the vehicles, it does not load the decals, the custom decals. I don't know. I guess it is what it is. But anyway, folks, wrapping up today's episode of Community Steel. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have yourself a wonderful day, and I'll see you for the next one.